The cargo ship dropped out of hyperspace with a low hum. Kang Jay sat alone in the pilot seat and watched Nexus Station grow larger through the front window. The station was a massive structure floating in the darkness of space. Thousands of ships moved around it like small insects around a bright light. Jay was 28 years old. He had short black hair and a thin scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his cheek. His eyes were tired but sharp. He wore simple clothes, worn from years of work in space. Once he had been a soldier for Earth's military forces. Now he was just a man who moved cargo from one end of the galaxy to the other. "Docking permission granted," a mechanical voice said through the speakers. Jay guided his ship toward the station. As he entered the docking area, he saw ships from dozens of alien species. There were the massive cruisers of the Sindri Empire, the sleek vessels of the Valorian traders, and the ugly transport ships of the Grunk miners. Humanity's ships were small and simple compared to all of them. Humans had only joined the galactic community 50 years ago. To most aliens, they were still children learning to walk. The ship landed with a soft bump. Jay stood up and stretched his back. Behind him, a door opened, and a woman walked into the cockpit. She had long black hair tied in a messy ponytail and grease stains on her hands. Her name was Yuna, and she was the ship's engineer. "Cargo is ready to move," she said. "Try not to get into trouble this time." Jay gave her a small smile. "When do I ever get into trouble? Do you want the list sorted by date or by how stupid each situation was?" Jay laughed quietly and walked toward the cargo hold. He had 3 containers to deliver to a Sindari merchant. The job would pay enough to keep the ship running for another month. That was all that mattered. The inside of Nexus Station was loud and crowded. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked through the wide corridors. Some were tall and thin, others short and heavy. Their skin colors ranged from deep blue to bright orange to pale gray. Jay moved through them like a ghost. Most aliens did not even look at him. When they did, their eyes showed something between pity and disgust. Humans were not respected here. Jay delivered the cargo without problems. The Sindari merchant paid him the agreed amount and waved him away without a single word of thanks. Jay did not care. He put the credits in his account and decided to get a drink before returning to the ship. The cantina was a dark place filled with smoke and strange music. Jay found a seat in the corner and ordered something simple. He watched the room quietly, observing the different species as they talked, argued, and made deals. It was always interesting to watch. Then he saw her. A woman sat alone at a table near the back. She wore a dark cloak with a hood that covered most of her face, but Jay could see enough. Her skin was pale violet, and silver markings decorated her cheeks like delicate tattoos. She was Sindari, but she was trying very hard not to be noticed. 3 Sindari males approached her table. They were big and wore expensive clothes. Nobles, probably. They surrounded her and began speaking in low voices. The woman shook her head. One of the males grabbed her wrist. Jay put down his drink. He did not run. He did not shout. He simply walked across the room with calm steps. The aliens around him did not pay attention. Why would they? He was just a human. "Let her go," Jay said. The 3 Sindari turned to look at him. They were each at least a head taller than him. Their bodies were thick with muscle. One of them laughed. "A human?" he said. "Go away, little creature. This does not concern you." "I said let her go." The Sindari who held the woman's wrist released her and stepped toward Jay. His face twisted with anger. "Do you know who I am? I am Lord Boras of the 3rd House. I could crush you like an insect." Jay did not move. He did not blink. He just looked at Boras with steady eyes. Boras raised his hand to strike. But before his arm could come down, Jay moved. It was fast, simple, and precise. He stepped to the side, grabbed Boras's arm, and twisted. The noble cried out in pain and fell to one knee. The other 2 Sindari reached for their weapons, but Jay was already behind Boras, holding him in a lock that could break his arm with one small movement. "I don't want trouble," Jay said calmly. "Walk away." The cantina had gone silent. Everyone was watching now. The 2 Sindri guards looked at each other. They were trained warriors, but this human had moved faster than they could see, and he showed no fear at all. "Release him," one of the guards said carefully. Jay let go and stepped back. Boras stood up, holding his arm. His face was red with shame and fury. "You will regret this," Boras hissed. "I will find you, human, and I will destroy you." He turned and walked away. His guards followed. The cantina slowly returned to its normal noise, but many eyes still watched Jay with curiosity. Jay turned to the woman. She had stood up and was staring at him with wide eyes. Her hood had fallen back slightly, and he could see her face clearly now. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unreal. Her silver markings glowed softly in the dim light. "Are you all right?" Jay asked. She nodded slowly. You should not have done that. Boras is dangerous." "Dangerous people usually are." She almost smiled. Almost. Then she pulled her hood back up and began to move toward the door. "Wait," Jay said. "Who are you?" She paused and looked back at him over her shoulder. "Someone who will not forget your kindness." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd like a shadow. Jay returned to his ship an hour later. Una was waiting for him with her arms crossed. "I heard what happened," she said. "A human embarrassed a Sindari noble in public. Please tell me that human was not you." Jay walked past her. "It might have been me." Una followed him, her voice rising. "Are you crazy? The Sindari could destroy us. They could take our ship, our license, everything. He was hurting someone. And that someone is not our problem." Jay stopped and turned to face her. "Maybe not, but I could not just watch." Una opened her mouth to argue more, but a loud knock on the ship's hull stopped her. They both looked toward the cargo door. Jay walked to the door and opened it. 6 Sindari soldiers stood outside in perfect formation. Their armor was silver and their faces were cold. "Kang Jay of Earth?" the lead soldier asked. "Yes." "You will come with us. Princess Vela wishes to speak with you." Jay and Una exchanged a look. "Princess?" The soldier did not wait for an answer. "This is not a request." Jay took a slow breath and stepped forward. Whatever he had gotten himself into, it was too late to walk away now. The Sindari diplomatic cruiser was larger than any ship Jay had ever seen. It floated near Nexus Station like a sleeping giant, its silver hull reflecting the distant stars. The soldiers led Jay through long corridors made of polished metal and glowing crystals. Everything was clean and beautiful and cold. Jay kept his face calm, but his mind was racing. A princess. The woman he had helped was a princess of the Sindari Empire. The Sindari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Their empire controlled hundreds of planets and commanded massive fleets. And their princess wanted to talk to him. This could not be good. The soldiers stopped before a massive door. It opened slowly, revealing a grand chamber filled with soft light. The room was decorated with purple curtains and golden ornaments. At the far end, sitting on a raised platform, was the woman from the cantina. But she looked different now. She no longer wore the dark cloak. Instead, she was dressed in flowing robes of white and silver. A thin crown of crystal sat on her head. Her violet skin seemed to glow, and her silver markings sparkled like stars. She sat straight and proud, her eyes watching Jay with sharp intelligence. Guards stood on both sides of the room, at least 20 of them. Jay was surrounded. "Leave us," the princess said. The guards hesitated. "I said leave us," she repeated. Her voice was soft but carried absolute authority. One by one, the guards bowed and left the chamber. The doors closed behind them with a heavy sound. Jay and the princess were alone. She stood and walked down from the platform. Her movements were graceful, like water flowing over stones. She stopped a few steps away from Jay and studied his face. "You are not afraid," she said. It was not a question. Should I be? Most beings would be terrified standing before a princess of the Sindari Empire. Jay shrugged slightly. "I have seen many frightening things in my life. A beautiful woman in a fancy room is not one of them." Something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, perhaps, or amusement. "My name is Vela," she said. "I am the crown princess of the Sindari Empire, first daughter of Emperor Novan, and I owe you my thanks." Jay nodded. "You are welcome, but you did not bring me here just to say thank you." Vela smiled, but there was sadness in it. "You are direct. I appreciate that. No, I did not bring you here just for thanks. I brought you here because I need your help." She turned and walked toward a large window. Beyond the glass, stars stretched out into infinity. My father has arranged my marriage, she said, to Lord Boras of the third house. Jay's eyes narrowed. The man from the cantina. Yes, he is cruel and power-hungry. He does not want me. He wants the throne. If I marry him, he will use me to control my father and eventually to control the entire empire. Can you refuse? Vela laughed bitterly. In the Sindri Empire, princesses do not refuse. We are tools for politics, nothing more. But, she turned to face him, there is one way. She walked closer to Jay, her eyes locked on his. Our ancient law says that a princess may reject a suitor if a champion defeats the suitor's chosen warrior in ritual combat. If someone fights for me and wins, the marriage arrangement is canceled. Jay began to understand. And you want me to be that champion? Yes. Why me? You have warriors, soldiers, guards. Why a human? Vela's expression grew darker. Because Boras is clever. His chosen warrior is Torak, the greatest fighter in the Empire. Torak has never lost a battle. He has killed over 300 opponents in the arena. Every Sindari warrior knows his name and fears him. None of them will stand against him. They would rather watch me suffer than face certain death. She stepped even closer. Jay could smell something sweet, like flowers from another world. But you, she said softly, you showed no fear against Boris. You moved faster than his guards could react. You are different from the other humans I have seen. There is something in you, something that does not break. Jay was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. If I fight and lose, I die. Yes. And if I win? Vela held his gaze. Then by our law, I belong to you. Marriage, title, everything. You would become a prince of the Sindri Empire. The weight of her words hung in the air between them. You are offering yourself as a prize, Jay said quietly. I am offering myself as payment for my freedom. That is not freedom. That is trading one cage for another. Something changed in Vela's eyes. For just a moment, the mask of the princess fell away, and Jay saw the person beneath. A woman tired of being controlled, a woman who had never been asked what she wanted. Perhaps, Shibran, she said, but a stranger who showed me kindness is better than a monster who calls himself my equal. I know nothing about you, Kang Jay of Earth, but I saw how you stood against Boras without hesitation. I felt something in that moment, something I have not felt in a very long time. What? Hope! Jay looked at her for a long time. He thought about his life, about the years of war, about the quiet loneliness of space. He thought about Yuna waiting on the ship, probably cursing his name. He thought about everything he had lost and everything he had left. This Torak, he said finally, tell me about him. Vela's eyes widened slightly. He is Sindari, but larger than most, nearly 8 feet tall. His strength is legendary. He prefers to crush his enemies quickly, with overwhelming power. He has never needed more than a few minutes to finish a fight. Weaknesses? None that anyone has found. Many have tried. Jay nodded slowly. I need time to think. I can give you one night. Tomorrow my father will announce the marriage arrangement to the Empire. After that, it will be too late. She reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were warm against his skin. I know I am asking you to risk your life for a stranger, she said. I know I have no right to ask, but you are the only one who might be willing to try. Please, Kang Jay, please consider it. Jay looked down at her hand, then back at her face. Behind the royal mask he could see fear, and beneath the fear he could see something else, a fire that refused to die. I will give you my answer in the morning, he said. Vela nodded and stepped back. She pressed a button on her wrist, and the doors opened. The guards returned. Escort him back to his ship, Vela commanded, and make sure no one disturbs him. As Jay walked toward the door, she called out one last time. Kang Jay. He stopped and looked back. Whatever you decide, she said, thank you for seeing me as a person tonight. Not as a princess, not as a prize, just a person. Jay held her gaze for a moment longer. Then he turned and walked away. The guards led him back through the long corridors, back to the docking area, back to his small ship. Yuna was waiting at the entrance with wide eyes. What happened? She demanded. What did they want? Jay walked past her without answering. He went to his small room, sat on the edge of his bed, and stared at the wall. Tomorrow he would have to make a choice. Fight an unbeatable warrior and probably die, or walk away and let a woman be handed to a monster. He closed his eyes and saw Vela's face in the darkness, the hope in her eyes, the desperation she tried so hard to hide. He thought about his father's words, spoken long ago on Earth. The measure of a man is not what he does when it is easy, it is what he does when it is hard. Jay opened his eyes. He already knew what he was going to do. Jay did not sleep that night. He lay on his small bed and stared at the ceiling of his cabin. The metal walls hummed softly as the ship's systems kept working through the darkness. His mind would not rest. He thought about the war. 10 years ago, humanity had faced its first real test in the galaxy. A species called the Falcon had decided that humans were too weak to deserve their own planets. They had attacked Earth's colonies without warning. Jay had been 18 years old when he joined the military. He had been 23 when the war finally ended. Those 5 years had changed him. He had seen friends die. He had killed enemies who were twice his size. He had learned that humans were not the strongest or the fastest species in the galaxy, but they were something else. They were survivors. They did not give up. They did not break. The galaxy had learned to respect human soldiers during that war, but once the fighting stopped, that respect faded quickly. Now humans were just the young species again, the newcomers, the ones who did not belong. Jay sat up and looked at his hands. They were rough and covered with small scars. Hands that had held weapons, hands that had taken lives, hands that had pulled wounded soldiers from burning buildings. Could those hands defeat a warrior who had never lost? He stood up and walked out of his cabin. The ship was quiet. He moved through the narrow corridor and stepped outside onto the docking platform. Nexus Station's artificial lights created a fake day, but Jay could still see stars through the massive windows in the distance. He started walking. The station never truly slept. Even at this hour, aliens moved through the corridors, traders making late deals, workers finishing their shifts, travelers waiting for their ships. Jay walked among them like a shadow. He passed a group of young Sindari who laughed at something on their screens. He passed a grunk miner who smelled like metal and sweat. He passed a Valorian merchant who looked at him with cold, uncaring eyes. Then a drunk Sindari stumbled into him. "Watch it, dirt species," the alien muttered. He shoved Jay aside and kept walking. Jay did not react. He just stood there and watched the Sindari disappear into the crowd. Dirt species. That was what many aliens called humans. Something to be stepped on. Something worthless. He continued walking. Near the edge of the station, he found a small bar that was mostly empty. He ordered a drink and sat in a dark corner. An old alien sat at the bar, drinking alone. His skin was gray and covered with scars. One of his arms was mechanical, made of dull metal. He was a Telleri, a species known for their warriors. The old alien looked at Jay with tired eyes. "You are human," he said. His voice was rough like grinding stones. "I am." The alien nodded slowly. "I fought beside humans once, during the border wars. My name is Drell." Jay raised his glass slightly. "Kang Jay." Drell picked up his drink and walked over to Jay's table. He sat down heavily, his mechanical arm clicking softly. "I have seen many species fight," Drell said. "The Sindari fight with power. The Valorians fight with speed. The Grunk fight with anger." He looked at Jay with something like respect. "But humans? Humans fight with something I do not have a word for." "What do you mean?" "You do not know when to stop. Even when you are beaten, bleeding, broken, you keep going. I saw a human soldier once, both legs crushed under a fallen wall. He still crawled forward with his rifle, still firing at the enemy." Drell shook his head slowly. "That is not courage. That is insanity." Jay smiled slightly. "Maybe. But sometimes," Drell continued, "insanity wins." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Drell spoke again. "I heard a rumor tonight. They say a human challenged the princess's suitor. They say he will fight Torak in the arena." Jay said nothing. Drell studied his face. "It is you, is it not?" "Perhaps." The old warrior leaned back. "Torak is dangerous. I have watched his fights. He is not just strong, he is smart. He breaks his enemies in body and spirit. Many warriors enter the arena against him with confidence. By the end, they beg for death. Have you ever seen him lose? No, but I have seen him almost lose. Once, many years ago. A Talari champion named Vorn fought him. Vorn was fast, faster than any Sindari. He dodged Torak's attacks again and again. For 10 minutes he survived. What happened? Drell's eyes grew dark. Torak caught him, broke his spine, held him up before the crowd like a trophy before killing him. Jay finished his drink. Thank you for the story. It is not a story, it is a warning. Drell stood up slowly. But I think you already know what you will do. I can see it in your eyes. He placed a heavy hand on Jay's shoulder. Fight well, human. Show the galaxy what your species is made of. He walked away, his mechanical arm swinging at his side. Jay sat alone for a while longer. Then he stood up and returned to his ship. Una was waiting for him in the common room. She had not slept either. Her eyes were red and worried. Well, she said, are you going to tell me what is happening? Jay sat down across from her. He told her everything. The princess, the forced marriage, Boras, Torak, the offer. When he finished, Una was silent for a long moment. Then she exploded. Are you insane? She shouted. Torak? The Torak? He has killed hundreds of fighters. He is a monster. And you want to fight him for some alien princess you just met? She needs help. So what? Lots of people need help. That does not mean you throw your life away for them. Jay looked at her calmly. If I do not fight, she will be given to Boris. You saw what kind of man he is. She will suffer for the rest of her life. And if you fight, you will die. How does that help anyone? Maybe I will not die. Una laughed bitterly. Oh, wonderful. Maybe you will not die. That is your plan? Maybe. Jay stood up. I have made my decision. Una stared at him. Her anger slowly faded, replaced by something sadder. Why? She asked quietly. Why do you always do this? Why do you always have to save everyone? Jay thought about the question. He thought about the war, about the soldiers he could not save, about the nightmares that still visited him. He thought about his father, dead now for 15 years. He thought about the man he used to be and the man he had become. Because someone should, he said finally, because if I walk away from this, I am not the person I want to be. Una's eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. You are an idiot, she said. I know. She stood up and wiped her eyes roughly. Fine. If you are going to die, at least you will not die looking like a fool. She walked toward the engineering bay. I am going to modify your combat suit. If you are fighting a monster, you need every advantage I can give you. Jay smiled. Thank you, Una. She stopped at the door and looked back at him. Do not thank me. Just win. Her voice cracked slightly. Please, Jay, win. She disappeared into the engineering bay. Jay heard the sounds of tools and machines starting up. He walked to the communication panel and opened a channel to the Sindari cruiser. This is Kang Jai, he said. Tell Princess Vela that I accept her offer. I will fight Torak. There was a pause, then a voice responded. The princess has received your message. Transport will arrive for you at dawn. May you find honor in the arena, human. The channel closed. Jay stood alone in the quiet ship. Tomorrow he would travel to the Sindari homeworld. In 3 days he would face the deadliest warrior in the Empire. He looked at his hands again. Time to see what they were really made of. The Sindari homeworld was called Sindra Prime. It was a planet of purple skies and silver mountains. Great cities rose from the ground like forests of glass and metal. Rivers of liquid crystal flowed through the streets, reflecting the light of twin suns. Jay watched through the window as the transport ship descended through the clouds. He had never seen a world so beautiful and so dangerous. Una sat beside him. She had refused to stay behind. If you die, someone needs to bring your body home, she had said. I am not letting some alien throw you in a hole. Jay had not argued. The transport landed in the capital city near the Imperial Palace. The palace was the largest building Jay had ever seen. It rose 1,000 feet into the sky, its walls made of white stone that seemed to glow from within. Towers and bridges connected its many sections like a spider's web made of light. Guards met them at the landing pad. They wore ceremonial armor and carried energy spears. Their faces showed no emotion as they led Jay and Yuna through the palace grounds. People stopped to watch them pass. Sindari nobles in fine clothes, servants in simple robes, soldiers in battle gear. They all stared at the human with a mixture of curiosity and disbelief. "Is that him?" Jay heard someone whisper. "The human who will fight Torak?" "He is so small," another voice said. "This will not even be a fight. It will be an execution." Laughter followed those words. Jay kept walking. He did not look at them. He did not react. They were taken to a large building near the arena. It was the quarters for fighters and their companions. The rooms were simple but comfortable. Jay was given 3 days to prepare. "You will have access to training facilities," a guard explained. "Food and water will be provided. You may study recordings of previous arena battles if you wish." "I wish," Jay said. The guard nodded and left. Yuna immediately began setting up her equipment. She had brought tools, scanning devices, and the modified combat suit she had been working on. "The suit has been upgraded," she explained. "Better flexibility, stronger protection at key points. I also added a shock layer. If you get hit, it will absorb some of the impact." "Some?" "About 20%. Torak's hits will still hurt. A lot." Jay nodded. "What about my speed?" "The suit is lighter now. You should be about 5% faster." Yuna's face was serious. "Jay, I have studied Torak's fighting style. He is incredibly powerful, but he relies on that power. He expects his opponents to try to match his strength. That is where they fail. So I should not try to match his strength." "Exactly. Move dodge, wait for openings. Do not let him grab you. If he gets his hands on you, it is over." Jay spent the rest of the day watching recordings of Torak's fights. There were many of them. In each one, Torak was terrifying. He moved like a storm, crushing his opponents with brutal efficiency. Most fights lasted less than 5 minutes. The longest was 12 minutes, against a warrior named Vorn, the same fight Drell had described. Jay watched that fight several times. He watched how Vorn moved, how he avoided Torak's attacks, how he created distance. Vorn had been good, very good. But in the end, Torak had caught him. What had Vorn done wrong? Jay watched again, and again. Slowly he began to understand. Vorn had been defensive. He had dodged and avoided, but he had never attacked. He had been waiting for Torak to make a mistake. But Torak did not make mistakes. Torak was patient. He had waited for Vorn to grow tired, and then he had struck. Jay would need a different approach. On the second night, he heard a soft knock on his door. He opened it carefully. Vela stood outside wearing a simple cloak over her royal clothes. Her guards were not with her. "May I come in?" she asked quietly. Jay stepped aside. Vela entered and looked around the small room. Her eyes fell on the screen showing Torak's fights. "You are studying him," she said. "Know your enemy. Do you think you can win?" Jay was silent for a moment. "I think I can survive longer than he expects. What happens after that, I do not know." Vela turned to face him. In the dim light, her silver markings seemed to glow softly. "Why did you accept?" she asked. "I have thought about it for 2 days. I do not understand. You owe me nothing. You could have walked away. Why risk your life for a stranger?" Jay thought about the question. "When I was young, my father told me something. He said that the true measure of a person is not what they do when it is easy. It is what they do when it is hard. And this is hard. Yes, but that is why it matters." Vela moved closer to him. "You are different from anyone I have ever met. Sindari males speak of honor and duty, but they only act when it benefits them. You gain nothing from this fight except the chance to die. Maybe I will not die." A small smile crossed her face. "You said the same thing before." "It is still true." They stood close to each other, almost touching. Jay could feel the warmth coming from her skin. "I must warn you," Vela said softly. "Barras will not let this fight happen fairly. He will try to kill you before you reach the arena. I expected that. Be careful. His assassins are skilled." "So am I." Vela reached out and placed her hand on his chest. She felt his heartbeat, slow and steady. "You are not afraid," she whispered. "I have been afraid many times in my life. But fear is just a feeling. It does not control me. Vela's eyes searched his face. If you win, the law says I will belong to you. How do you feel about that? Jay placed his hand over hers. I did not accept this fight to own you. I accepted it to give you a choice. Something shifted in Vela's expression. The mask of the princess cracked just a little, and underneath, Jay saw something raw and real. No one has ever said that to me before, she said. Then maybe it needed to be said. They stood together in silence for a long moment. Then Vela stepped back and pulled her cloak tighter. I must return before the guards notice I am gone. She walked to the door and paused. Kang Ye. Yes? Survive tomorrow night. Survive Boras's assassins. And then, in the arena, show them what a human can do. She opened the door and slipped into the darkness. Jay stood alone. He touched his chest where her hand had been. His heart was still beating steadily. Tomorrow night, assassins would come for him. He walked to his bed and lay down, but he did not close his eyes. Instead, he listened to every sound in the building, every footstep, every whisper of air. They would come, and he would be ready. The hours passed slowly. Jay remained still, his breathing calm, his body relaxed. But his mind was sharp, counting the seconds, waiting. Just before midnight, he heard it, a soft click at the door, the lock being picked. Jay smiled in the darkness. The game had begun. The door opened slowly. 3 shadows slipped into the dark room. They moved in silence, their footsteps making no sound on the stone floor. Each one held a curved blade that glowed faintly with purple energy. Sindari assassins. The best killers money could buy. They approached the bed where a figure lay under the covers. The lead assassin raised his blade. One quick strike to the throat. Simple and clean. Lord Boris had paid well for this. The blade came down and cut through empty pillows. The assassin had only a moment to realize his mistake before something hard struck the back of his knee. He fell forward with a grunt of pain. A hand grabbed his head and slammed it into the floor. Jay moved out of the shadows like water flowing around stones. He had not been in the bed. He had been waiting beside the door, watching them enter, counting their steps. The second assassin spun and slashed with his blade. Jay ducked under the strike and drove his elbow into the assassin's stomach. The Sindari doubled over. Jay grabbed his arm, twisted it, and threw him into the third assassin. They crashed together and fell to the ground. The first assassin was already rising, blood running from his forehead. He charged at Jay with murder in his eyes. Jay sidestepped the attack and delivered a precise strike to the assassin's throat. The Sindari made a choking sound and grabbed his neck. Jay kicked him behind the knee, forcing him down, then struck the base of his skull. The assassin collapsed and did not move. 2 left. They had untangled themselves and now stood side by side, their blades ready. They were more careful now. This human was not the easy target they had expected. Together, one of them whispered. They attacked at the same time, their blades cutting through the air in deadly patterns. Jay retreated, avoiding each strike by centimeters. The room was small, but he used every piece of furniture as cover and obstacle. He pulled a table between himself and the assassins, kicked a chair into their path, used the walls to change direction. One assassin overextended. Jay grabbed his wrist and twisted hard. The blade dropped. Jay caught it before it hit the ground and drove the handle into the assassin's temple. He went down. The last assassin hesitated. He looked at his fallen companions, then at the human who stood before him, not even breathing hard. What are you? The assassin whispered. I am the man you should not have come for. The assassin threw his blade at Jay's face and ran for the door. Jay deflected the blade with his forearm guard and chased. He caught the assassin just as he reached the hallway. A precise strike to the back of the neck, and the last attacker fell. Jay stood in the doorway, looking at the 3 unconscious bodies. He had not killed them. Dead men could not talk. Unconscious men could be questioned. A small sound made him look up. Yuna stood at the end of the hallway, holding a small recording drone in her hands. Her face was pale. I got everything, she said, from the moment they entered. Jay nodded. Good. Now we need to make sure the right people see it. They worked quickly. Jay tied the assassins with cables from Yuna's equipment. Yuna checked the recording and made copies on several devices. By the time the sun rose, the footage was on its way to the Sindri High Council. Morning came with chaos. Imperial guards arrived at Jay's quarters, responding to reports of a disturbance. They found the three assassins bound and awake, with the recording playing on a screen for everyone to see. Lord Baras's personal seal was visible on one of the assassins' hidden pouches. Within hours, the news had spread across the capital. Lord Baras, the noble who sought to marry Princess Vela, had sent assassins to murder her champion before the arena battle. It was a violation of the sacred combat laws. It was cowardice. It was disgrace. Boris denied everything, of course. He claimed the assassins had acted alone, that he had never ordered such an attack, that it was all a trick by the human. But the evidence was clear. The High Council demanded an explanation. The Emperor himself sent a message requesting Boris's presence. By afternoon, Boris's reputation was in ruins. Jay watched all of this from his quarters. He sat calmly, eating a simple meal, while Yuna paced back and forth. "We did it," she said. "We exposed him. Maybe now the Emperor will cancel the marriage. Maybe you will not have to fight at all." "The fight will still happen," Jay said. "What? Why?" "Because Boras still has the right to challenge. His honor has been damaged, but he has not been proven guilty. The council will investigate, but that takes time. The arena battle is tomorrow. Nothing has changed." Yuna stopped pacing. "Then what was the point?" "The point was to show everyone who Boras really is. Now, when I fight, they will not see a foolish human challenging the great Torak. They will see a man who survived an assassination attempt standing up against corruption." Yuna stared at him. "You planned this." "I expected it. There is a difference." A knock on the door interrupted them. Jay opened it to find a tall Sindari male standing outside. He wore the armor of a warrior, but his face showed no aggression. If anything, he looked thoughtful. "I am Torak," he said. Jay did not step back. He did not show surprise. He simply looked up at the massive warrior who stood before him. "I know who you are." Torak studied the human with curious eyes. He saw the small room behind him, the bound assassins being led away by guards, the calm expression on Jay's face. "I heard what happened last night," Torak said. "Three of Boris's best assassins. You defeated them all without killing them. Killing was not necessary. Many warriors would have killed them anyway, for revenge, for anger. I am not many warriors." Torak was silent for a moment. Then he did something unexpected. He bowed his head slightly. "You have earned the right to die in the arena. I came to tell you that I will make your death quick. It is the least I can offer a warrior who fights with skill and honor." Jay looked at Torak without fear. "I did not survive the border wars by being quick to die." Something flickered in Torak's eyes. Interest, perhaps, or respect. "The border wars," Torak repeated. "You fought in them?" 5 years. "Against the Vulcan?" "Yes." Torak nodded slowly. "The Vulcan are strong, brutal. Many species could not stand against them. But humans did. We had no choice. There is always a choice. You chose to fight." Torak straightened to his full height. "Tomorrow we will meet in the arena. I will not hold back. I will use every bit of my strength and skill. If you have any hope of surviving, you should do the same." Jay met his gaze. "I intend to." For a long moment, the two warriors stood facing each other, giant and human, champion and challenger. Tomorrow, only one of them would walk away. Then Torak turned and walked away without another word. Yuna let out a breath she had been holding. That was the most terrifying conversation I have ever heard. Jay closed the door. "He respects me now. That is dangerous." "Dangerous? Why?" "Because when Torak respects an enemy, he does not underestimate them. He was going to treat me like an easy kill before. Now he will treat me like a real opponent." "Is that bad?" Jay smiled slightly. "It means I got inside his head. Now I just need to stay there." He walked to the window and looked out at the arena in the distance. Its massive walls rose against the purple sky like a monument to battle. Tomorrow, he would step onto that sand. Tomorrow, he would face death. And tomorrow, one way or another, he would show the galaxy what a human could do. The grand arena of the Sindri Empire was filled with the roar of 100,000 voices. Beings from every corner of the galaxy had come to witness this battle. News drones flew overhead, broadcasting the event to billions across the stars. Today was history. Jay stood in the entrance tunnel, waiting. The noise of the crowd was a distant thunder beyond the heavy doors. When he wore the combat suit Yuna had modified, light and flexible, colored in dark gray. In his hands, he held two short fighting sticks made of reinforced metal. No blades, no energy weapons, just simple tools that he had trained with for years. Yuna stood beside him, her face tight with worry. "Remember what I said," she told him. "Do not get grabbed. Do not try to match his power. Move, wait, and strike only when you see an opening." "I remember." "And do not die. That is very important. Do not die." Jay turned to her and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you, Yuna, for everything." Her eyes grew wet. "Just come back. Please." The doors began to open. Light poured into the tunnel. The crowd's noise became a wave of sound that crashed over him. Jay walked forward. The arena was a circle of white sand surrounded by towering walls. Above the walls, seats rose in endless rows, filled with spectators. At the highest point, a royal box overlooked everything. Emperor Novan sat there in golden robes, his face unreadable. Beside him sat Princess Vela, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Her eyes found Jay as he entered the arena. Across from him, another door opened. Torak emerged. The crowd erupted. Torak was even more terrifying in the arena light. He stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in ceremonial armor that gleamed like liquid silver. His arms were as thick as Jay's entire body. His face was calm, focused, the face of a warrior who had never known defeat. They walked toward the center of the arena and stopped 10 feet apart. An announcer's voice echoed through the space. "Today, we witness ritual combat for the hand of Princess Vela, crown heir to the Sindri throne. Lord Baras's champion, the undefeated Torak, faces a challenger from the human species, Kang Jay of Earth." The crowd laughed. Many shouted insults. Jay heard the words clearly. Weak, small, foolish. Dead man walking. He ignored them all. The announcer continued. "The battle ends when one fighter is dead or unable to continue. There are no other rules. May the strongest prevail." A horn sounded. The fight began. Torak did not rush forward immediately. He had learned respect for this human. Instead, he walked forward slowly, his massive fists raised. Jay circled to the right, keeping distance. He watched Torak's feet, his shoulders, the way he shifted his weight. Every movement told a story. Torak attacked. He was fast. Much faster than his size suggested. His fist came down like a hammer, aimed at Jay's skull. Jay moved. He slipped to the side and felt the air rush past as Torak's fist missed by inches. The ground cracked where the blow landed. The crowd gasped. Torak attacked again, and again. Each strike was devastating, each movement precise. But Jay was not there. He moved like smoke, always just beyond reach, never standing still. The crowd's laughter stopped. For 3 minutes, Torak chased Jay around the arena. His attacks grew faster, harder, but they never connected. Jay ducked, sidestepped, rolled, and retreated. He did not strike back. He did not try to block. He simply was not there. Torak's breathing grew heavier. His face showed frustration. "Stand still, human," he growled. "Face me like a warrior." Jay said nothing. He kept moving. Torak roared and charged with all his speed. This time, Jay did not retreat. He moved forward. For one moment, they were close enough to touch. Jay ducked under Torak's swing and struck. His fighting stick slammed into Torak's knee with precise force. The sound of impact echoed through the arena. Torak stumbled. The crowd went silent. Jay moved back, watching. Torak's leg was not broken, but it was hurt. The giant steadied himself and looked at the human with new eyes. "You are not trying to win," Torak said. "You are trying to survive. Surviving is winning." Torak smiled. It was a cold, dangerous smile. "Not against me." He attacked again, but now he was more careful. He used his longer reach to keep Jay at distance. He did not overextend. He did not waste energy on wild swings. He was hunting now. Jay felt the change. The fight was getting harder. He was running out of space, running out of options. Torak was learning. A fist clipped Jay's shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm. He rolled away, but Torak was already following. Another strike grazed his side. Jay felt something crack. A rib, maybe more. Blood began to flow from cuts on his face and body. The crowd roared with excitement. The human was finally dying. But Jay did not stop. He kept moving, kept breathing, kept watching. Torak's frustration returned. Why would this human not fall? Why would he not break? Every other opponent had given up by now. They had begged for mercy. They had accepted their death. But this human just kept fighting. You cannot win, Torak said. You are too weak, too small. You are nothing. Jay spat blood onto the sand. Then why am I still standing? Torak's eyes widened with rage. He abandoned his careful approach and attacked with everything he had. His fist became a storm, raining down blows that could shatter stone. Jay took hits, one to the arm, one to the back. Each one felt like being struck by a vehicle. His body screamed with pain. His vision blurred at the edges. But he did not fall. And in Torak's fury, he saw it. The opening. Torak threw a massive punch aimed at Jay's head. He put all his weight behind it, all his strength, all his rage. It was the kind of punch that ended fights. Jay moved inside. He stepped forward instead of back. The punch went over his shoulder, and suddenly he was inside Torak's guard, closer than any opponent had ever been. Jay struck. His fighting stick hit Torak's throat, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to choke. Torak's hands went to his neck. Jay struck his knee again, the same knee he had hit before. Torak dropped to one leg. Jay did not stop. He struck Torak's temple. Once, twice, 3 times. Each hit was precise, aimed at the exact point where the skull was weakest. Torak swung blindly, but Jay was already moving. He circled behind the giant and struck the back of his neck. Torak fell forward, catching himself with his hands. The crowd was screaming. Some cheered, some booed. Most simply could not believe what they were seeing. Jay stood over the fallen champion, breathing hard, covered in his own blood. Torak tried to rise. His arms shook. His body refused to obey. "Stay down," Jay said quietly. Torak looked up at him. In his eyes, Jay saw something he had never expected to see. Respect. "You are no ordinary human," Torak whispered. "There is no such thing as an ordinary human." Torak's arms gave out. He collapsed onto the sand and did not move. The arena fell silent. Jay turned and looked up at the royal box. Emperor Novan stared down at him with an expression that might have been shock. Lord Barras had gone pale, and Princess Vela was standing, her hands pressed against the railing, tears streaming down her face. Jay raised his head. He was still standing. The announcer's voice echoed through the stunned silence. The battle is over. The challenger has defeated Torak. By the laws of our people, Princess Vela is now claimed by Kang Jay of Earth." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the arena exploded with noise. Some Sindari shouted in anger. Others shouted in amazement. But above it all, Jay heard something that made him smile despite the pain. Cheers. Not many, but some. Beings who had watched a small human defeat an unbeatable giant through nothing but skill, endurance, and the refusal to break. Jay collapsed to one knee as his strength finally gave out. Medical teams rushed onto the sand, but he was alive, and he had won. 3 days passed before Jay could walk without help. The Sindari doctors were skilled, and their medical technology was far beyond anything on Earth. His broken ribs healed quickly. The cuts on his body closed without scars, but the exhaustion took longer to fade. Yuna stayed by his side the entire time. She complained constantly about his recklessness, but she never left his room. When he finally stood on his own feet, she pretended not to cry. "You are still an idiot," she said. "I know," he replied. News of the fight had spread across the galaxy. The human who defeated Torak, the small warrior who brought down a giant. Messages arrived from human colonies, military commanders, and ordinary people who had watched the broadcast. They called him a hero. They called him a symbol. Jay deleted most of the messages. He was not interested in fame. On the 4th day, a summons arrived from Emperor Novan. Jay was requested to appear in the throne room of the imperial palace. He dressed in simple clothes, the same plain outfit he always wore, and walked through the grand corridors alone. The throne room was vast. Pillars of crystal rose to a ceiling painted with images of ancient battles. Guards lined the walls, standing perfectly still. At the far end, on a throne of white stone, sat Emperor Novan. He was old but powerful. His violet skin was marked with age, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. He watched Jay approach with an expression that gave nothing away. Princess Vela stood beside the throne. She wore her royal robes, but her face was softer than before. When she saw Jay, something flickered in her eyes. Lord Barras was not present. Jay had heard that he was under investigation by the High Council. His political power was destroyed. His allies had abandoned him. Whatever happened to him now, he would never threaten Vela again. Jay stopped at the bottom of the steps leading to the throne and bowed his head. "Kang Jay of Earth," the Emperor said. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You have done something that no one believed possible. You defeated Torak in ritual combat. You exposed the treachery of Lord Boras. And you have thrown my court into chaos." Jay raised his head but said nothing. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. "By the ancient laws of our people, you have won the right to claim my daughter. Marriage, title, lands, position. All of this could be yours." Jay nodded slowly. "I understand the law." "Good." The Emperor leaned forward slightly. "Then speak your claim. Tell me what you demand." The room was silent. Every guard, every noble, every servant watched and waited. This was the moment they had all expected. The human would claim his prize. He would become a prince of the Sindari Empire. He would gain power beyond anything his species had ever known. Jay looked at the Emperor. Then he looked at Vela. She stood perfectly still, her face a mask, but her eyes told a different story. In them, Jay saw the same thing he had seen that first night on the diplomatic cruiser. Fear and hope tangled together. He took a breath and spoke. "I do not want to claim her." Silence. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Jay walked forward, past the guards until he stood at the bottom of the steps. He looked up at Vela directly. "I did not fight Torak to win a prize," he said. "I fought because a woman asked for help. I fought because she deserved the right to choose her own future. If I claim her now, I am no better than Boris. I would just be another man who sees her as something to own." He turned back to the Emperor. "With respect, I do not want your daughter's hand. I do not want titles or lands. I only want one thing." "And what is that?" "Let her choose." The Emperor's expression shifted. For the first time, Jay saw surprise on that ancient face. "Choose?" the Emperor repeated. "Yes. Let her decide what she wants, not because of law or politics or tradition. Just let her be free." The throne room was so quiet that Jay could hear his own heartbeat. Nobles exchanged confused glances. Guards shifted uneasily. No one had ever spoken to the Emperor this way. Vela stepped forward. Her voice was steady but soft. "Father," the Emperor looked at his daughter. "He risked his life for me," Vela said. "He faced Torak, survived assassins, and bled on the arena sand. And now, when he could take everything the law offers him, he asks only for my freedom." She paused. "No Sindari has ever done this. No noble, no warrior, no prince. Only this human." The Emperor was silent for a long time. Then slowly he rose from his throne. "Kang Jay," he said, "you are a strange creature. I have ruled this empire for 70 years. I have met warriors, scholars, kings, and conquerors. But I have never met anyone quite like you." He descended the steps and stopped before Jay. Despite his age, the Emperor was still taller, still imposing. "Your species is young," the Emperor continued. "Many in this galaxy see humans as weak, primitive, unimportant." He placed a heavy hand on Jay's shoulder. "They are wrong. You have shown me something today that I had forgotten. Honor is not about power. It is about what you do when you have power." He turned to Vela. "Daughter, this man has given you a choice. What do you choose?" Vela walked down the steps until she stood beside Jay. She looked at him for a long moment, her silver markings shimmering in the throne room light. Then she smiled. I choose to stand beside him, she said, not as a prize, not as a debt, but as a partner, someone who wants to know him, someone who wants to walk with him and see where the path leads. She took Jay's hand. The Emperor watched them for a moment. Then unexpectedly, he laughed. Then so be it, he said. Kang Jay of Earth, you have my blessing. Not as a conqueror of my daughter's hand, but as a man worthy of her respect. He looked at the assembled nobles. Let it be known throughout the empire. This human is a friend of the Sindari people. Any who harm him, answer to me. The nobles bowed their heads in acknowledgement. Jay and Vela walked out of the throne room together, hand in hand. The corridors were long, but Jay barely noticed. His body still ached, but something in his chest felt lighter than it had in years. When they reached the outer gates, Una was waiting with the ship ready for departure. Her eyes widened when she saw Vela beside Jay. So, Una said slowly, are we adding a princess to the crew now? Jay looked at Vela. She was still wearing her royal robes, completely out of place beside the worn cargo ship. But she was smiling, a real smile that reached her eyes. I think I need to learn how cargo ships work, Vela said. If I am going to travel among the stars, I should earn my place. Una raised an eyebrow. Can you cook? No. Clean? I have never cleaned anything in my life. Then what can you do? Vela thought for a moment. I can negotiate trade deals. I speak 9 languages, and I know every major political figure in 3 star systems. Una considered this. Then she shrugged. Good enough. Get on the ship, and do not touch anything expensive. Vela laughed. It was a bright surprise sound, like something long forgotten coming back to life. They boarded the ship together. Una started the engines. The vessel lifted off from the landing pad and rose into the purple sky of Sindera Prime. Jay stood at the window, watching the planet grow smaller below them. The palace, the arena, the city of glass and crystal all faded into distance. Vela joined him at the window. She slipped her hand into his. Where will we go? She asked. Jay thought about the question. He thought about Earth, about the colonies, about all the places in the galaxy he had never seen. Anywhere, he said. Everywhere. We have time. Vela leaned her head against his shoulder. Behind them, Una's voice came through the speakers. Setting course for the outer rim. Try not to start any wars while we are in hyperspace. Jay smiled. The ship jumped to hyperspace and the stars stretched into lines of light. Ahead of them lay the unknown, vast and endless and full of possibility. Behind them across the galaxy, the story was already spreading. The human who fought a giant, the princess who chose freedom, the moment when everything changed. It was just the beginning, and together they flew toward the stars.